thanks for joining me today. This is Laura Lynn with KeepInkingUp.com. I'm an independent demonstrator for Stampin' Up in San Antonio, Texas. And today I wanted to share with you a product from our current 2018-2019 annual catalog. It's our embossing mats for the Big Shot, and I wanted to share it with you because I think it's often an overlooked product in our catalog. It's found right here on page 221, right here, the Big Shot embossing mats. It's $15. I think it gets overlooked because it's not really, it's a bunch of rectangles. Doesn't really look that fabulous in the catalog, but it really is a wonderful accessory, and I think after watching this, you will want to have it for yourself. So anyway, I wanted to show you how to use them. What you get for $15 is the white, thick embossing plate. Then you get a really thin blue, I think it's silicone embossing mat. And then you also get a thicker gray embossing mat. And I'm going to show you how to use both embossing mats and to use that embossing plate. I do recommend that you hold on to the instructions because in case you forget how to make the sandwich, you have the instructions right here. You'll notice that I wrote flip sandwich on here, and I'm going to explain why I do that. If you do forget how to use them and you didn't keep your instructions, you can certainly rewatch this video again. I think that hopefully that will be helpful for you. So you can use these embossing plates with any thin metal dies that you already have in your collection. For today's example, I am going to be using the embossing leaves from the Rooted in Nature embossing thinlits. Oops, these are already my old ones. I'm going to use these three embossing thinlits, but you could use any thinlits that you have, any framelits that you have, and hopefully if I remember, I will show you an example of using a regular thinlit at the end of this video. So I'm going to use these three embossing thinlits. I have a couple of pieces of cardstock right here, so I'm going to do the same thing for each one. And first I'm going to show you how to use these regularly, like you normally would without the embossing mats. So I'm going to write on here regular. I don't have very nice handwriting, but that's regular. And I am going to place my leaves on here. And I'm going to go ahead and create my sandwich that I normally would without using the embossing plates. I'm not going to use those right now. So if you don't have the embossing plates yet, you would normally use your ooh, I have it upside down. You have your standard platform, your thin die adapter, then your standard cutting plate. I'm going to put my sheet of cardstock with my embossing thinlits on there. I'm going to put another clear plate on top. Then I'm going to bring in my Big Shot and roll that through. It goes through nice and easy. And take that off, and we'll show you what that looks like. Oops, static on my plates. So here you can see what that looks like, and that's a really nice look. Nothing wrong with that. So that's what you can make with your embossing thinlits without the embossing mats. But let's use the embossing mats and see how it changes. So to use the embossing mats, the instructions show to start with your basic platform, put down a cutting plate, then your thinlits with the edges facing up, and then you put your cardstock down. Now you'll see why I have a problem with this is you can't really tell where you're putting your thinlits. Well, maybe I should write on here first. We're going to be using the blue, let me write here blue embossing mat. Okay. So you put that on there. Then you put the embossing mat, either the blue or the gray, and then you follow that up with the white embossing plate. But as you can see, you can't tell where your plates are, so that kind of frustrated me, but this is what the instructions say. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just literally flip this completely over and do it that way. This is a kind of roughed up plate. So I'm going to go ahead and start over so you can see how to put it together. I'm going to start again. This is how I do it. I'm going to start with the basic platform. Then comes the white embossing plate. Then the embossing mat, your cardstock, and your embossing thinlits. And I'm going to line them up approximately the same way as I did the other one, just so they'll look similar. It doesn't have to be, but I'm just going to do that so we can compare them. That's pretty close to how I had it. And then I'm going to finish off with a clear cutting mat. And then I'll bring in my big shot again. And I'll roll this through. And it's really easy. It kind of feels like there's nothing going on at all. That aside, and we'll see what this looks like. Static again with these. And there we have the embossed leaves. I'm going to put these two together. You can see a little bit of a difference. This is without the embossing mat, and this is with the blue embossing mat. So you can tell it's a it's a little more puffy embossed. This is a kind of a cut looking embossed. So that's the difference between those two. So now we're going to do exactly the same thing, but with the gray embossing mat. And again, I do I flip the sandwich based on the instructions. So I'm going to again start with the big short platform. I'm not using the thin die adapter. If you remember on this first example of the regular, I use the thin die adapter. When you're not using the embossing mats, you do need to use that. But with the embossing mats, you don't. You just start with the standard platform, the white embossing plate. Then we're going to put the gray embossing mat. I'm going to take another piece of cardstock, and this time I'm going to write on it gray. Okay, then I'll put that down, and then I'll put my, oh my gosh, I lost the, oh, there. I'm going to put my leaves again, similar to how I had them before. So we can compare them the same. And then I'll finish that off with the cutting mat. Now what you'll find when you do this is the gray embossing mat is really thick and it'll kind of move on you. But that's what I kind of like about seeing through the clear cutting plate, because I can see if the die's actually moved. You'll see is the gray, you can see the gray kind of sliding. That's because it's super thick and the pressure is making it slide. Now this is a little bit harder to go through the big shot, but still rather easy. The blue one was super easy. This one's just a little bit easy. I'll put this aside. We'll take this off. Again, we got a lot of static. And I think that you'll see how much deeper this is embossed. So here's the gray gray embossing mat, which is really deep. Here's the blue embossing mat, and then here it is with the regular cutting plates. So you can really see the difference. Look how deep, that is just so pretty. Isn't that lovely? So anyway, I hope that you found this video helpful and that you will now want to go out and get the embossing mats. They really make a huge difference. Oh, and like I said, you can use any of your dies that you happen to own with these embossing mats. You don't have to use just the embossing thinlits. Here I have an example. I'll take it out of the plastic so you can see it better. Here's an example of, I used the bee thinlit from the Dragonflies Dreams thinlit, and I coordinated it with the stamp set. Isn't that a really pretty background that I just used the bee over and over again to make a little bee background. So anyway, like I said, you can use any of your metal thinlits that you have in your collection. All right, thank you so much for joining me, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye-bye.